on the issues. My special guest this evening is, I would call one of our most remarkable sons of this nation. Remarkable in many respects. Major General Joe Singh, and he's known throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. He's a young man that hailed from Ogle Estate. Humble beginnings. He used to live in a lodge, or what we call range in those days. And he was there until he was 7, 8 years. Then his parents were teachers. They moved to Canal number 1. And then he did some farming. He helped his parents. And in those days, like all of us in the rural areas, we had to help the family cut grass, do lots of things, and go and help to sell the produce from the farms. So yes, he came up the hard way, but he was very bright, and he won a county scholarship and went to Queen's College, and he took an active part in Queen's College, all the various debates, etc. And then he had joined the Special Cadet Corps of Queen's College. The British government, which was still British Guyana, was looking around for officers, persons who had something in them that could be officers in the new Guyana Defence Force. And after a selection process which was very rigorous, Joe was selected as a cadet, along with another Guyanese, Brigadier Granger.
Well, there are a number of us there. I think 12 of us.
12 of us,
yes.
And 12 altogether. And they were sent later on to the UK, where they undergone serious studies. And in the UK, when they put you through military school, it was very rigorous. Came back, and within a short space of time had made a name for himself. He was involved in the army in many areas. Most of his period was spent in the interior. He will give us a little more glimpse of the interior. And in 1969, January, when there was the Rupununi uprising, he was commanding one of the forces, 3 platoons. And that was quite an event. Most people on the coast knew very little about it until it was all over. And he had some hair-raising experiences, because when they were about to land with the plane was they were shooting at the plane. Luckily, the wings and the other parts were not touched, and they had to make a landing from the windward side, making it difficult to land. They arrived, and they were able to put down the uprising in very short period of time. That's now part of the history of Guyana. So, Joe, you were part of a history-making period. Then you went on into the army. You spent most of the time. Later on, I'm not going to give the full text of all your accomplishments. You became head of the National Service. You were head of the Army, and then the Joint Services. So you had quite a career. And to cut it short, he served under 5 presidents. Retired at the age of 55, whilst he was still top of the job. And he need not have retired, because he was asked by Dr. MajGen to stay on, but at that time he felt he had had enough of the army and wanted to do something different. That's when he joined Conservation International, and Joe will give us some other
It was
insight.
chairman of the Elections Commission
first, yes.
Yeah.
The Elections Commission, and this was the troubled year of 2001, was it?
2000, 2001.
2000, 2001.
We had 6 months in which to jumpstart the elections.
And I could remember it was a troubling year, and when the results of the elections were highly disputed. Not that the other 97 elections weren't disputed too. And I wouldn't go into the details of that, but he came out of that process as chairman of the Elections Commission with flying colours. Joe, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, yes.
And what we'll be discussing, Joe, is general talk, aspects of your career, how you find yourself in a position now away from the army, We're running one of the largest companies in Guyana, if not the largest, GT&T. After Conservation International, you've now been offered a number of challenges which you took on head on. And you're also, I may have been responsible for some of this, the head of the special organization that was set up as a result of prompting from the diplomatic corps, and that is the Citizens.
Oh, the citizen. Well, not prompting from the diplomatic corps. The Citizens Initiative is something that we started in 2005 when we had a great flood.
Yeah.
So a number of us who had some experience in disasters, flooding especially, formed a little group called the Citizens Initiative and offered our services and expertise to the government to assist in the whole approach to disaster relief and disaster management. And I'm happy to say that we are still in existence now, but our focus is not only on disaster preparedness, but also on things like water and sanitation, and working very closely with other partners, other networks, like the Red Cross, etc., the East Coast Cleanup Committee. But thank you very much, Yesu, for having me here. I'm honored to be in your program, especially with you yourself as an icon in the business world and with your contribution as a great patriot to Guyana, to democracy, your cultural contributions, and I'm very happy, and I'm sure most Guyanese, or every Guyanese, would be pleased with the honors which have been bestowed on you, especially by Warwick University and your honorary doctorate. And you seem to be always pulling something out of the hat with DDL, new products, maintaining that competitive edge. So for me, I'm very appreciative of this invitation and hope that our viewers will benefit from our discussion.
Just to mention that Joe is married, happily married to Caroline, and has one son, and that they live a normal family life, but he does more than most in terms of helping communities. And where there's need for a helping hand, you could always turn to Joe. And I've never seen a man say no yet. And he's a guy who, I know many people would say no, but he's one of those who would not say no, providing it's a challenging task. And he's done that so many times. Now, the one I was talking about, after we had a meeting at the Pegasus.
This is the National Working Group on the Millennium Development Goals, when you inveigled me to be
I inveigle you to take it on, take on the chairmanship of
in 2005.
2005.
And I know that, well, I've been the chairman now for going on to 3.5 years. And coincidentally, we have a retreat tomorrow at the Chadijagan Institute, Research Institute, really to ensure that we are on track in executing our mandate, which is to stimulate and facilitate partnerships between the public and private sector for the benefit of communities, especially in terms of job creation, marketing of their products, value added, looking at capacity building, at training, particularly job-related training, and working through networks rather than duplicating effort. We have 12 members representing the private sector, the public sector, and non-governmental organizations. We get an annual allocation from the UNDP government of Guyana, and we utilize those funds not only to cover our particularly traveling, going to various areas and speaking with people, whether it's the chambers of commerce or women's groups like the Blue Flame group in the Northwest District. We more recently engaged with the Kurukuru Farmers Association, where they have an interest in beekeeping. Honey, in fact, is one of the potential money spinners. And in addition to producing honey, the bees, of course, are great pollinators. And if you want to have a nexus between honey production and fruit production, then you get involved in beekeeping. As you know, most of our bees here are the Africanized variety rather than the Italian strain, which was here many years ago. And for those who don't know it, in the United States, I understand that there are people who are actually managing hives and renting those hives out to orchards purely for pollination.
Yes, because
Not so
without
much for honey.
pollination, nothing
Exactly.
happens.
So this is an area which we feel has great potential, not only from the standpoint of honey, which is a health food, but also in increasing the productive capacity of our orchards. As you know, you running Topco, and you know the importance of fruit production.
In fact, fruit production, that's one area that we're still hoping we could see greater
Yeah.
production
Yeah.
in that Topco could buy all the cherry you could supply,
Yeah.
passion fruit, and other fruits also, guava. And this is the wild type of guava.
Yes, yes.
That makes the best.
Yeah. But what I think is
Producers.
very important, and I thank you for involving me in this group, because it's one of the things that gives you the greatest satisfaction in being able to work, particularly with communities, the women in particular, like the Blue Flame Women's Group, and see how their livelihoods are being enhanced, and how with mentoring of the kind that, for example, you yourself and people like Dennis Morgan, with his garment outsourcing, not just training people to produce clothing with many of the brand names, but also mentoring them in how to save, how to enhance their own domestic environment, you know, and wherever we can make that kind of intervention, I believe, in keeping with the mandate of the Millennium Development Goals, you can see improvements in their nutrition, particularly children. The school feeding program, for example, that Beacon Foundation, among others, pioneered in the Rupununi, where instead of taking in the biscuits and milk that we were accustomed to when I was going to school, they got together, and with mentoring from people like Claremont Lai, Jerry LeGras.
Well, I'll tell you, Claremont is a dedicated person.
I mean, it's a wonderful program which I don't think has been fully ventilated in the public. They're growing cassava, they're also growing peanuts and cashew nuts. And they said, look, you know, why can't we put together a sandwich made of cassava bread and peanut punch to replace the imported biscuits and milk?
Mm-hmm.
And with the support of the Ministry of Education, they were able to do this, establish some pilot schemes. And now the village economy, because they're motivated to grow the peanuts and the cassava, the children are attending school because they get this peanut butter sandwich and peanut punch. And another donor is assisting with a hot meal. The requirement here is that everything that goes into the preparation of that meal must be produced by the community. So I think it's a wonderful story of how people can help themselves, have import substitution, develop their village economy, aid
spending money,
aid in health and nutrition, and use the savings that they accumulate to diversify their economy, as some of the southern communities are doing. I think one of them, Awarawa now, was able to accumulate nearly $6 million at the end of 2007 from that process, and are using that money to diversify into other areas. So for me, that is one group that has been, in my view, facilitating these public-private partnership. We hope that using models like the Northwest Organic, you know, Annette Arjun has been working with,
Annette has done a wonderful job
with people in Region 1.
Yes.
And wherever we can, we provide these models as examples of how it is possible to rise above your circumstances, get involved in communal work, and wherever we can help to build capacity, improve their management techniques. Currently, we're supporting Emprotech, which is running a program at the library. 2 VSOs are running it. This is in agro-processing, where they've brought together persons from a number of regions who've been involved in things like pepper sauce, achar, and so on, and really looking at refining the techniques and the methodology, giving them some production line management. And when they return to their communities, the whole production line management will be enhanced. We're also identifying some trainers among that group who will then be able to travel to other parts of the country where other communities and other groups can benefit from this kind of value added in terms